Okay, hi guys. Tonight we're going to take a look at 0 and negative exponents. And what we mean by that is if I have a base of 3, what happens if my exponent is anything other than a whole number, like 3 to the 0 power. And also, if I have a base of 3, what happens if my exponent is negative? So the rules for these are a little bit different than what we're used to. So for example, in 3 to the negative 2, we can't multiply 3 negative 2 times, so we have to figure out what we have to do to fix that. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to take a look at 0 exponents. So, and here is a general rule. So for every non-zero number, so what that says is if this number here, the x, is not 0, any number raised to the 0 power is always equal to 1. It doesn't matter how big the base is, doesn't matter how little the base is. Anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So for example, in example number 1 down here, 1.23 to the 0 power. I don't care what's inside here. The only thing I'm looking at is the exponent, and the exponent is 0, so that means this is equal to 1. Here my base is an integer, it's 5. 5 to the 0 power is 1. If we take a look at 1,234,567,890, this whole number, this huge number, is raised to the 0 power, it equals 1. And if we have negative numbers, if our base is negative and it's raised to the 0 power, it's also equal to 1. And that by far will be our pretty much easiest exponent rule for this unit. We'll take a look at several others throughout the unit. Okay, so what happens if my exponent is negative? So we're going to take a look at a couple examples on here, and I'm going to take a look. I'm going to use my calculator. So we're going to look at, and write these off to the side, 2 to the negative 1, 2 to the negative 2, and 2 to the negative 3. Okay, so if you see down on the screen on the bottom, I have a calculator. So I'm going to type in 2 to the negative 1 on my calculator. So on your calculator, it might look a little different. Okay, so on my calculator, I'm going to type in 2 to the negative 1, and I'll show you how to do this on the calculators we're going to use in class. So there's 2. I need to write an exponent, and I'm going to write in negative 1. And you might think that I'm going to get 2 for an answer, but I don't. I get 0.5 because 2 to the negative 1, or negative exponents, mean that my answer is going to be a decimal. So how would we write that with a positive exponent? So this is equal to 0.5. As a fraction, I can write that as 1/2. So 1/2 can also be written, if I want to, as 1 over 2 to the first power. So let's take a look at 2 to the negative 2. I'm going to do that one on my calculator as well. And when I do that on the calculator, I get 0.25. And 0.25 as a fraction is 1/4. And I can write 1/4 as 1 over 2 squared. So let me rewrite this one up here. It was 0.5, which is the same thing as 1/2. 2 to the negative 3 on my calculator is 0.125. As a fraction, that's 1/8. And I can write 8, if we remember from our first unit, as 2 to the third. So let's look at our fractions. Look at the denominator of our fraction. And 2 to the first would be the same thing. This is 2 squared. I have 2 to the negative 2. This is 2 to the third. I have 2 to the negative 3. So what happens when we have a negative exponent? We have to make a fraction. The base goes on the bottom, and this exponent becomes positive. So for example, let's look at x to the negative a. If I write this as a fraction, basically I'm just going to flip them over. The 1 goes on top. The base goes on the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive, sorry. Now what happens if the negative number's on the bottom? Well, I do the same thing. I flip it. The 1 goes on the bottom, the base goes on the top, and the exponent becomes positive. So let's do the next 6 examples together, and this is one of those things where it's like it's difficult to understand, but once you get the hang of it, it's fairly easy. So we are going to write 4 to the negative 3 as a fraction. We're going to flip it. The 1 will go on top, the base of 4 will go on the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. 3 to the negative 4. We're going to write 3 to the negative 4 as a fraction. We're going to flip it. The 1 goes on top, the base goes on the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. Because negative exponents are really decimals, and if we were to put 1 divided by 3 to the 4th in the calculator, we would end up with a decimal. So next example is already written as a fraction. We're going to flip it. The 1 goes on the bottom. In this case, the negative number is on the bottom, so we bring it to the top, and then the exponent becomes positive. Let's take a look at the next 3 examples. Negative 4 to the negative 3rd power. So we know that this is going to be a decimal because it has a negative exponent. We're going to make a fraction. We're going to flip it. The 1 goes on top. Our base in this case is negative 4. We're going to keep it in parentheses, and so we don't worry about the base being negative. It doesn't matter if the base is negative or positive. We only worry about the exponent. The negative 3 goes on the bottom with the base and becomes positive. X to the negative 2, make a fraction. We're going to flip it. The 1 goes on top. The base goes on the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. Now this last one is kind of tricky because the 5 does not have an exponent. So we are going to leave that one alone because this is the same thing as 5 over 1 times 1 over x to the negative 4. So if we multiply 5 times 1, we get 5, and 1 times x to the negative 4, we get x to the negative 4. So really I just split this up. So the easiest thing to do with this one, we're going to leave this fraction alone, so we're going to leave that as 5 over 1. This one we're going to flip. So the 1 goes on the bottom. The base comes up to the top because it has a negative exponent, and the 4 becomes positive. And if we wanted to simplify this, we could do 5 times x to the 4th over 1, which is the same thing as 5 times x to the 4th. And this particular type we are going to practice with a lot in class tomorrow. Okay, last 2 examples. If you want to try them on your own, you can. If not, we'll do them together. These are called the Einstein challenge. Okay, so we need to simplify this, and these are very hard, and they're very hard for Math 1 and for Math 2 students. So for this one, I'm going to make a fraction bar. I'm going to circle the bases that have positive exponents, which is x squared and z to the 3rd. They stay where they are, so I'm just going to rewrite them x squared and z to the 3rd, and they stay because they have positive exponents. I'm going to circle the ones that have negative exponents, so y to the negative 1. It's negative on the top, so I'm going to bring it to the bottom and make it positive. B to the negative 2 is negative on the bottom, so I'm going to bring it to the top and make it positive. And that's it. We are done. So if it's negative on the bottom, bring it to the top, make it positive. If it's negative on the top, bring it to the bottom and make it positive. So in example 2, evaluate A equals 3 and B equals negative 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to rewrite the parts of this that I don't need to change. And so 4 is not going to change. For A, I'm going to plug in the number 3. And it's 3 squared. For B, I'm going to plug in the number negative 2, and I want to put that in parentheses, and the exponent is going to stay the same. So I know that 4, I need to simplify this part of the expression. The 4 is going to stay the same. 3 squared is 9. Now this one over here has a negative exponent, so I'm just going to rewrite it over here real quick. So we have negative 2 to the negative 3 power. So we're going to write it as a fraction. We are going to flip it. The 1 goes on top. The base stays the same, and the exponent becomes positive. So then this will be 1 over negative 2 to the 3rd power. 4 times 9 is 36. Negative 2, and remember this from the last set of notes, times negative 2 times negative 2. We're going to simplify that. Again, bring down the 36, and this will give us 1 over negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then 36 times 1 over negative 8 is negative 4. Because what we end up with is 36 divided by negative 8. Sorry, that's negative 4.5. Okay, so I understand that this is kind of difficult, and so like I said, we're going to go over this some more in class tomorrow. If you have any questions, please jot them down on your notes page.